No, but we need to follow up with that.
So I did get a briefing from them yesterday, so we just need to circle up and then.
It's like we can have an answer for you tomorrow on
Yeah.
that.
Can we hear from the chief of staff at the briefing?
Well, I think he needs to be briefed first and then
Okay.
decide on the appropriate time to release information.
Thank you.
Just get it out from underneath that in a hurry.
He's a pro at that.
He's getting good
He used
at
to be
that.
the elections officer.
About if the non-compete bill does pass the House, you said just a minute ago you're confident it would pass. Have you guys talked about it in caucus? How might it do in the Senate?
Well, Kevin?
I don't know if we really know yet. We haven't really discussed it.
We haven't talked about it in caucus?
No.
No?
I think that you don't want to get too excited until it gets here because you never know what form is coming in. Did the substitute fail? I know there was a substitute around.
Look, no, the substitute is being discussed right now.
Oh, is it?
So, I think as a Senate, we're pretty happy a couple of years ago where we got non-competes. And this issue now has come up this year, focusing directly on the media. And I've had people from the media administration here and talk to me about why we should not pass it. And I've heard from those who are employees for the media institutions who said that we need to address it. There's always two sides to the story. So Senator Van Tassel is spot on. We don't know what form it is going to be when it comes over here, and at that point we'll address it. Senator Davis, anything in your caucus on non-competes?
Nothing in the caucus yet. I think it's being lobbied on both sides, and personally I could probably argue either side of that argument.
It's just that I don't know if the media is low-hanging fruit or why specifically the media, but there's definitely arguments on both sides of this, and we want to take some time and make sure we're deliberative about that over the next week or so as we address that House bill here in the Senate.
This morning there was a meeting without really tax bills, but to outline the tax bills. So what's it going to look like at the end of this? I mean, are you going to do you predict that action will be taken on getting a tax package through, or do you think that it's likely to punt to 2019 so you can kind of see the full impact of the congressional tax credits and tax cuts?
Well, first of all, that's going to be dependent on our revenue numbers, which I understand that we'll have those this afternoon, sometime during floor time. Not sure how we'll announce those, but we'll stay tuned this afternoon. That will determine a lot about what we do with any kind of tax reform. But I've been focused, and I think the House has agreed to this, I've been focused on the windfall of revenue that we're getting from the federal reform, which is the $80 million. That forecast probably will not change because it was they made that forecast based on actual tax data. They can do that. They can make those forecasts. So I'm in favor, and I think many members of the House, including the House leadership, you'd have to ask them specifically, but they seem to be in favor of us trying to keep the status quo and not have a windfall from federal reform. And that would allow us now to lower the rate. The rate that's been battered around a little bit is 4.95%, both corporate and individual rate. And it's important that you lower both of those so you don't incentivize C corporations over pass-through entities. It's just important that you keep that parity. There's the elements that are found in Senator Fillmore's bill, which would freeze the statewide levy and generate some more, that would actually generate some more revenue over time. And then we're looking at single sales factor apportionment, which would really be a help to attract businesses here that actually have employment and property. Where we tax based on property employment, that's a disincentive to locate in Utah. So those would be some of the things we'd be looking at. And
So-
seem to have favor at this point.
Mr. President, I want to make sure I'm correct. You said 4.95% rate on income tax, so you'll lower it to that.
Both corporate and
For-
individual income tax
And is the
rates.
House likely to go along with that? Are they kind of in agreement with you on
Yeah,
this?
we haven't come out in arm with that, but that's some of the discussions we've had, and there
Kinda where
seems to be
you're
some favor on that, for sure.
Single sales would cost about 30, so.
About $30 million.
Lowering to 4.95, is it safe to say that would be about a 50 million?
Yeah, about 55 million, at least, that's what our numbers are indicating.
Okay.
I'm sorry, 55 million for,
That would be lowering the rate to 4.95%. That's unofficial, but that's the number I saw.
Why are these being handled separately instead of in one omnibus bill that would have single sales, the rate for schools and 4.95?
Well, in reform in 2007, all the bills, or the content of that bill, which was the famous omnibus tax bill that probably had, I don't know, there was probably 5 to 10 different
Factors
tax
in there.
issues in there. I carried the bill, so I knew it very well. My bill originally didn't have 10 items in it. It had one, it was the income tax reform bill in 2007, and they added sales tax off of food. This is leadership took my bill and became the omnibus bill. So I think there's a possibility that as we watch all these bills come through individually, that any given time we could create an omnibus bill out of it. But it could be that we'll just let them pass on their own, and at the end, leadership will have to fund those, the tax cuts anyway.
And in the end, it doesn't sound like cutting the sales tax on food is going to be part of
Well, I mean, I think that bill's going to run into a little bit of trouble here in the Senate. We've been doing the opposite for the last 10 years, so this is really contrary, but it's hard to predict in an absolute way what will happen here in the Senate.
So those bills could be combined later on, but they're better to run individually so that you know which ones have
Biggest
some
fiscal.
type of, legs to them, so.
That's the way we did in 2007. That doesn't mean we'll do it that way this time, but those are the options that we're considering.
It says you're splitting up bills. I mean, I know Senator Stevenson had that big omnibus bill which included property tax equalization. Where is that now? Is that dead on arrival, or what's happening with that?
I don't know where that bill is
I
at.
don't even know.
Clearly, it's
So I mean, it's,
Unfortunately, in many ways, if it's not yelling at you, you kind of don't pay attention to it until it's right there. And
so that could be a vehicle that they could all go into, or another one of these bills could be modified, and they could all be put into there. So we're not sure what the vehicle will be, but those are the issues we're talking about. And that's kind of relevant, but not totally as to how it moves through.
Once we get the numbers today, we'll start being able to actually do some working and planning. Till we get those, we're just guessing.
but
And-
it's the beginning of now gelling at that point.
So, any like sneak peek of what those revenue numbers are looking like? Are you feeling good about them, or are you feeling like
We've
you're?
got
I haven't
an
seen
hour or
them.
two here.
Okay.
That is the best kept secret.
Jerry Stevenson is the only one I know of in the Senate that's seen those numbers.
And it'll only be an hour or so before they're out, so.
Is that why he's not here?
I guess.
Unless I'm writing a check to somebody out in the lobby.
That's for the spouse's service activity that we're contributing to today.
President Niederhauser, do you support or oppose the death penalty, moving the death penalty?
We talked about this yesterday. Last year, I supported the bill that was 2 years ago.
Yeah.
Last year.
2 years.
2 years ago. I supported the repeal, but since that time, I've gotten some other information with regard to it may be actually a deterrence. And at this point, I'm still undecided about where I'm going to vote on the death penalty. I've been vacillating back and forth, and had decided I wasn't going to vote for it this year, but that's still up in the air.
Well, this coming Saturday, the State Central Committee of the Republican Party meets, and it's going to discuss a bylaw which could lead to purity tests for Republicans. You gentlemen are leaders in the Republican Party. Do you believe that a citizen should be able to say if they're a Republican when you register to vote, you just self-identify as a Republican? Or do you believe the state Republican Party should be able to decide who its members are?
I think they should take it to a vote of all the Republicans and just say, it shouldn't be just the Central Committee, a small group of people that are going to decide that.
How would they do that?
That's a big issue. That's a big change for the Republican Party. I think without getting the support of the rank and file Republicans, I think they run the risk of further divisions within the party. I think it's unhealthy for us to have that kind of division.
How do they do that?
I'm not sure how they would necessarily do it, but I think a caucus setting would really be a good setting for it.
So maybe wait until the caucus meetings and
Sure.
let all Republicans weigh in there.
Yeah.
How do you personally feel about that issue?
Well, we want to make sure that the Republican principles are upheld, but we feel like we do that as a legislature, and we're a pretty red state, pretty conservative, but yet I think some want to take us towards libertarianism, which Republicans aren't libertarians.
So, I don't know if it kind of feeds into there's been a lot of talk about the caucus convention system, but I've been through that system, I think, on every one of my elections to date, and the first ones, both in the House and the Senate, that's a great system. And the thing that's so great about it is, especially in the Senate, there were 300 delegates, and it takes work to get to go see 300 delegates at their kitchen tables and in their living rooms and on their front porches. But when you go through that process, you get a cross-section of a Senate district or a House district that you probably don't get any other way by sending out flyers or going through a primary. So I can see why people are passionate for it, because it is a really good system. The other thing that system allows is for someone to run that doesn't have a lot of money. It takes a ton of money to send flyers out and to buy signs, and it just is hard when you represent, especially in a Senate district, 100,000 people. It's hard. So I can see the conflict. I just hope that in the process that we come up with this solution that allows that to continue, but does it in a way that doesn't cause severe divisions within the party, because the Republican Party, we'd like to, I think the majority, having the Republican Party in the majority, has served the state well, and I think we need to be as inclusive as we can. That's a great system.
What does that mean, though, a solution? I thought that's what SB 54 was supposed to be.
Well, I think we tried with SB 54, and that's where we're at. But I think to have a dual-track system is not ideal for some of us, but hopefully the caucus system, in my opinion, it would be far worse to move to just a primary system. A lot of states have primaries.
Kevin, do you have anything?
You know, I've never done signatures. Mine's all been caucus, and as you said, Senator Adams, it's, by the time you spend 3 weeks or so out visiting all those, there's a cross-section that's elected delegates, and, you know, it's just been days and evenings going around and visiting, and when you get just sending out your slick ads and all of those things, you kind of can control that, but you don't get the on-the-ground approach that you do in the caucus, and it has served well. I think that, but there are those voters that are somewhat caucus members that feel like they're not heard, and there's a number of reasons why that may or may not be, but it'll be, you know, if we start doing a purity tests, the decision on who's going to be selected, if it gets to be a very small group of people, I'm afraid we'll do ourselves a lot of harm.
So I think we're all concerned about that.
Yeah, that's why I think the rank and file Republicans ought to be at least polled or talked to in caucus or some other setting to determine if that's the way they want to go, because I think we've seen of late that the Central Committee and the general Republican population haven't aligned on a lot of things.
Well, I mean, we've seen that in election results, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
We saw that in Chaffetz's district.
Yeah, which is not healthy. I mean, I think that's important that we try to get an alignment back in the Republican Party with our Central Committee and what every Republican feels here in the state on a general basis.
Is there anything that you can use as GOP leaders to kind of resolve that split between the elected leadership of the state GOP and the state central committee, which is just calling meetings on its own and doing
Well, and they
these
have the
things?
right to do that. It's
Yeah.
part of the bylaws, and I mean, they do that, and we're part of the Central Committee, and so we can go and be a voice there. It's just difficult for us to attend a lot of meetings while we're in session. It'd be better and make it a little easier for us to participate if it was outside of the session.
And I'm unaware, it may be different in counties, but I'm unaware that, you know, as far as delegate, that in Davis County, we're automatic members of the Central Committee. I don't think that's the case.
It's a little
just
different
seems
in
like-
every county.
Yeah, I mean, it just seems like your party ought to, the administration of your party and the central committee ought to at least be on the same page, right?
There needs to be more alignment. I think that's, and hopefully we could get there.
So which way? Do you change the leadership or you change the central committee?
That's really a party issue, and the party's going to have to, rank and file of the party need to step up and be heard. And I think we'd have more alignment. Look what happened in Senator Hatch's race 6 years ago. You know, it changed quite a bit. And when you had more attendance at those meetings.
You did, but you also spent $5 million.
Yeah, it's too bad we have to spend $5 million to get people to come to their caucus meeting, you know, and that's kind of sad. And so I would ask the people in the Republican Party to attend your caucus meeting. I know it's difficult sometimes, but it's a small price to pay for our system, our wonderful system here.
If I could just go back quickly to the sales tax off food, you said that might be, it's hard to predict what will happen. I mean, traditionally, those bills fail over here.
Yes, well, or
is
the
there something-
opposite has been our mind, you know, put
Yeah.
the sales tax back on food.
Is there something different maybe this year? Are you maybe more willing to look at it as a moral issue as it's being portrayed over in the House?
I really don't know. We haven't really talked about it.
You know, it was talked about, I listened to, I actually went down to the Revenue and Taxation Standing Committee and listened to a couple of issues, and the subject came up, and Phil Dean, who's now used to be on our legislative and fiscal research, was an attorney for the legislature, now is with the governor's office, but he actually talked about, we did a study, and the challenge that we found is when you take sales tax off of a stable base like food, that some of the other programs that take away the aggressive nature of it get eliminated from the budget, and it actually becomes more detrimental morally than it would otherwise. And the other issue that was talked about very clearly is when you destabilize our sales tax. I mean, I've talked many times that sales tax revenue resembles the roller coaster at Lagoon. And property tax is stable and you pay it whether the economy goes up or down, but when the economy's booming, people are buying furniture and cars, and it's going up like the climb of the first hill of the roller coaster. As soon as interest rates start to rise, it goes down the other side. And the stability in that is basically food. And you take out the stability in it, and you just make the ride up and down a lot more volatile. And I just don't, when you make that ride volatile, sometimes when they're cutting budgets, the budgets that get cut are those that the low-income advocates would want, and it becomes very detrimental to them. I think stability helps us all.
But very few states tax food. And this bill also raises the overall sales tax slightly to make it revenue neutral. So it shouldn't have that kind of volatile impact. So,
Sales tax on food is one of the most regressive taxes there is. It hits people with the lower means a lot harder than it hits people in other economic classes.
there you go. Back to my question, what's changed? I mean, this is the same debate you've always had, right? So the expectation would be it won't do well over here. No.
I can't see anything that's changed.
Okay.
We'll take questions from those who are watching, and then if there's any questions the media has, you can talk to us individually.
This viewer said, I am very concerned about the potential cost of defending the constitutionality of the Down syndrome abortion bill. Does this not concern the Senate?
We talked about this a little while back. The answer we gave a couple weeks ago, and happy to address it again, is if there's an issue that we feel is an issue that we want to defend, that we could collaborate with other states on, it is worth the effort, and it's worth us putting forth our views. This question on abortion, though Supreme Court ruling has been given, is still still divides this nation, and so, and in some ways, I don't think the question's been answered. Now, this has a specific purpose for Down syndrome, and right now the Senate's contemplating whether that's the right thing that we should do, and we're still working on that. Other questions?
Not yet.
Okay, thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, I did get the vote, total 60, let's see, hold on, sorry, 62 to 12
On which, was it,
on the non-compete thing.
which, was there substitutes?
That's the substitute was accepted, and then it's coming over
Okay,
here on a 62.
and is that a first or second substitute?
First substitute.
First substitute, okay.
Like a-
I've taken a look at what that does.
What does it do? Thanks.